Again, this is the same kind of thing. Grammatical complexity of utterances matter. So the more complex language you use, the more in the appropriate context, and of course, what contains the most of the grammar contained in the actions. So the more verbs you use in different forms of the past, future, and present tense, the better for your child. So don't be afraid. Like if you have a past perfect tense, use it. If you have future, because like let's say pretty, like, let me say pretty perfect, future perfect tense, also use it if it's appropriate and if it's in the context. Use the grammar that is correct at the moment of saying the speech. So regardless of what your child can understand now, use variety of grammatical constructions. Instead of simplifying certain utterances, try to explain the meaning of a meaning using additional words. It's called elaborate your speech. So structural elaboration appeared to be the more effective than lexical elaboration. So that's it came from the one of the scientists. There was a famous Roger Brown who described the second language acquisition sequences, and he is one of the most famous educators of American second language education, right? So he was a pioneer of this field, like made a massive impact for the contemporary teaching approaches. So one of his students, Chang, he wrote only one paper that was his doctoral thesis about how to elaborate texts. And what he found in those, in his work, is very interesting thing. So we normally, when we like modify texts for second language learners with low proficiency, the first thing we always do as teachers, we chop off the original text. We just chop off the pieces and remove complex words, leaving only simple structures, grammatical structures, and simple vocabulary. What this Dr. Chung found is that actually it's an efficient method for comprehension, but the more efficient method is actually use the original text as is, and instead of chopping off complex words, he started to add explanations of the meaning of those complex words, which increased the overall length of the text significantly. But the point is that no matter how many words were in those texts, the comprehension level was way much better than if you chop off the text and remove all complexity. This precise study made me just think about how we foreigners who try to teach our kids the English as a second language, or those famous artificial bilinguals, right? When they introduce what we do, because what I do, right? Put it this way: what I do when I try to speak English, I'm not really proficient to the like a native one, right? So I don't consider myself at that proficiency level. So what I did from at the very beginning, I was simplifying grammar. So instead of using complex sentences like I've just eaten, I've eaten, right? I've eaten means that I have finished food and I'm now full. So there is a consequence of that event. I've eaten. On the daily basis, because of my native language, I was not ready really to use this complex grammar intensively to teach her about finishing of the action. What I used is past simple instead of past perfect. And I said, I I just ate, using just as indicator of time. The same, this is a grammatical transfer from my native language where we don't have extensive tenses. And to show that we finished something recently, we use adverbs. Right? So I have not been using the construction that can simplify my life, right? Because that involves the use of the have and third particle, which is I've eaten, I've eaten, I've forgotten, I've read, right? So what I did, I ate, I forgot, and and I just read, right? This simplification of the grammar really deprives the deeper levels of her knowledge of English. Just because of this, because she hasn't heard these constructions from me at the very beginning, and I started to add them as I grew myself, right? because my English development is keep on going and I keep on acquiring. So I noticed later that she doesn't know how to use them correctly. Even though she may pick up from time to time from outside, the matter is that we live in the a place where the majority, 100% of the people are all non-native speakers of English. There are just a rare few who are native speakers, and we never actually meet them. The school, preschool where she goes, and the other kids in that preschool, no one native speaker of English. And we all use the same simplification technique. Instead of using grammatically complex sentences with diverse tenses, we prefer to stick to past simple, future simple, and present simple. Beware about this situation. The more complex grammar you use, the better it's for language development of your kids. That's the point. And also, when they did the study with the chunk about expanding text, elaborating that text instead of simplification, they found out that this students from those studies pointed out that elaborated text is more natural than a simplified one. So when you add complexity to the grammar, it looks more natural rather than if you remove that. What we did by simplifying tenses, just shrunking 16 English tenses to just 3, like in my native language, we actually a little bit deprived development of the English in this case. I know that in many of you, like in Arabic and German and Spanish, you guys all have extensive tenses in your grammar, so use them. Don't be afraid, because you know what's interesting. I'm gonna just talk a little bit more about that. Is that construction have and third particle? It means word, they can substitute the word just, right? So I've eaten means that I've just eaten, just. What at this moment I have just finished my meal. I've written means I've just finished writing something. I've forgotten means that I just right now forgot about that. So this just together with the simple tense sounds alien. That's not normal. That's not native like. And when we avoid those constructions because we are not really proficient in those target languages, we really don't leave them the opportunity to learn it. If it requires for you to learn something, take your time and review your grammar as well. That naturalness of elaborated text is their main advantage over the simplification. So that feel of that it's natural is always more attractive rather than the feeling of it doesn't sound like a native like. So this is a learning curve for you, because we may possess quite extensive vocabularies, but we may not have that extensive grammar behind if we are not native speakers. So be aware of that. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. So co-construction of narratives with children in English language matters. Talking at length with the children regarding their past experience, elaborately and extensively reminiscing, help children to excel in narrating, which influences many other levels of the languages. Ask many questions, WH questions about their past events. Who was involved? What objects were involved? Where and when something occurred? How one thing led to another one, and why people behaved as they did. So past recollection is a super valuable experience, which I observed from my husband, because he doesn't like to read. So that ideal setup when he's reading Spanish books and discussing something is not his way of doing things. The way how he communicated with the toddler, starting from the earliest days, is they were recalling different events from what just happened to them, and whether it's eating something, going out, or even like playing something, every single detail or every single little thing that they did together, he found a minute to discuss that again. So recollection of the past events. What they were doing, like bringing memories up, right? Do you remember how we went to the playground? Do you remember where we parked the car? Do you remember what type of tree was above the car? Was the car parked far away from the playground? Do you remember how you stepped on the scary pine cone and how you jumped? And then even the little toddler was so engaged with his stories. And if the child cannot reply yet, that's totally fine. The most important part is that you are recollecting those stories for him, modeling the speech. So what you can do, you can recollect actual events, playground, preschool visits, anything. Visits of relatives or visiting somebody. Story, cartoon, video recollection. So that I recommend you because I'm a story type of person. So I normally did retell of the story by after we finish reading. Also, knowledge recollection. What do you know about the tigers, trucks, trees? So question your child. This is the time to check what they know, but with only one person. The purpose, right? To develop their language. Procedures recollection, for instance, bedtime, nap time, feeding, changing routines, everything can be an object for recollection. And ask your child questions and reconstruct replies on his or her behalf when or if she cannot reply yet. Follow the retelling order. So that's the order for retell is there's 5 fingers, right? Setting, when and where something happened. So let's talk about the past birthday. Hey, do you remember your 3-year-old birthday? No, 3-year-old birthday. Do you remember your 3-year-old birthday? Mm-hmm. When was that? So was it winter or summer? Or maybe it was autumn or spring? And where? Was it in the park or it was indoors? Was it in the cafe or restaurant? So you ask those questions. Settings is where and when. Then the characters. Who was there, right? Who was at your birthday? Do you remember? Was it only for the birthday for the kids or for adults? Do you remember your aunt Joyce? Was she there or not? Uh, then what happened, right? The problem. This is we're using for story writing and story retell, but here we have what happened and why. So do you remember who brought you do you remember who brought you the best gift? Then another problem. Do you remember who blew off the candles? Do you remember who was our waiter? Do you remember what you ate for that birthday, right? Events. What happened first, next, then last, right? So pick one. Let's say who blew the candle. Okay, tell me more about the candles. Do you remember what type of cake we had? Was it round, black, white, diagonal? What type of the cake? Was it tasty or not? And then the child is gonna follow you. Don't worry. So first we brought the cake, then we put the candles on, then we lighted the candles, then mommy brought it to or the waiter brought it to our table, and then everybody was singing a song, and then you blew off the candles, right? And then so solution is like so what happened next? Did you enjoy? And how did you blow the candle? The problem was blow off the candle. So how did you do that? Did you do it like this? Or you did it like this? Right? So again, you engage your body language, your mimics, and your intonation and everything, right? So pick the problem. Normally, like, do you remember how you climb up get on the swings? No, you don't remember. Remember, you were just like grabbing the chains first, then try to put one knee on, then try, but you did not. You didn't succeed, right? Then you tried to put the second one, and then what was the solution for this? I came and helped you, right? So follow these 5 steps: setting, characters, problem, events, sequence of events, and how everything resolved. That is how to use the past recollection for language development. So positive tone. Positive tone matters. The problem of the tone is that we use different language when we are choosing type of tone. When negatively toned commands and other forms of directiveness do not support language development because referential but not regulatory language. Referential, it means that narratives, and regulatory is a command. Commands like let's go, stop doing this, stop hitting this, stop eating snacks before dinner. So when you give a command to a child, so referential language contains more nouns and adjectives compared to regulatory language, which is characterized by fewer specific words and more pronouns. So The problem of the tone is not that it's positive or negative, but because when we use a positive tone, we use different type of the language. So when we use negative tone as rule, immediately the structure sentences change. No, structure of the sentences change. Negatively toned commands, orders, and other regulatory language is characterized by fewer specific small words and more pronouns. It cuts short the rich vocabulary that emerges when parents ask questions. So always ask questions. If instead of the given commands, go get changed, go get ready, go eat your food, go do this and that, ask questions. Are we ready to go and get changed? Are you interested in eating this type of food or that type of food? Are you who is ready to go to preschool? Okay, mommy is ready. What about you? Are you ready to go to preschool? Right? Instead of yelling like me every morning, get out from the house, because my kid is a little bit like late all the time. So hurry up. Instead of like, who is gonna hurry today, mommy or baby? So ask questions like this is what you see a lot of on Instagram. Instead of this, say that. Instead of this, say that. The purpose of this, of course, the kind of like we are massaging there. Commands are never efficient way of communication. It's the first reason. Second, negative tone is harmful and damaging for the psychic of the kids. And the third main reason is that the language, negative and positive tone uses is different. So, for example, when would you like to go invites a conversational response. Where would you like to go invites the conversational response compared to the let's go. Where would you like to go? This is give a choice and ask an opinion. So ask your kids their opinion and give them choice. However, if we introduce a second or foreign language with limited proficiency, this strategy has its limitations and it's also learning curves for parents. For instance, our Mandarin classes, they are like that. First of all, I learned Qi Fan. He Qi Chai. Hey Chai. Qi Chuan. Those commands, right? I hope that once my proficiency grow, I will be able to put those into sentences. But you understand that we are learning foreign language, and that type of communication is inappropriate if you are acquiring your native language. So be mindful. Like, of course, I cannot. I already mentioned that I cannot change the way how we deal with the Chinese, right, with the Mandarin, because of my improficiency. If I would be, my improficiency is actually the limitation for the kid. If I would be a little bit more advanced in the Mandarin and haven't started learning together with her, I would be probably a little bit more advanced and I could use more referential language rather than just giving commands. But even commands at the beginning still kicking, because it's at least something than nothing. And I always go for something than nothing. So, and so this is a task for you. Instead of it's a bad time, go brush teeth and change, we can use this. How would you paraphrase that? I would paraphrase it. It's a bad time. Do you want to change PJ first and then brush teeth, or brush teeth and after to change your clothes? Are we going to read before changing and brushing teeth, or right or now? Do you want to pick the book, or shall I do it for you? Right? And so on, so on, so on, so on. You see the difference. This is this is considered negative tone, right? It's command. And this is a referential language, which is narration and asking questions. Now, another example. It's a mealtime. Let's eat. It's a mealtime. Let's eat something tasty and healthy. I can cook for you, or we can eat leftovers of the yesterday's dinner. What do you want, new food or the old one? And I have great news for you too. We are having dessert after. Guess what is that? All right, your guess is right. It's a fruit, your favorite grapes. Here we go. Here are your grapes, and so on, so on, so on, so on. And think about like now bath time. It's a bath time. Let's go. It's reading time. Let's read. Made an activity for you. Play. Let's play. So think about how would you change these three phrases into more interactive and referential one, and leave a comment. Okay, leave a comment on YouTube. Your changes, modifications in the last few phrases. Okay, but you got the point, right? From these, it's a bad time. Go brush your teeth and change. You can put it into nice narration. So integrated and meaningful context matters and adults who talk about hammers, hard hats, screwdrivers, and tool belts while building something with a child, or reading a book about building provides an optimal context for acquiring extensive connected vocabulary and concepts. So, contexts of what you're doing or what you're reading should be aligned with the actions and interests of your child. Of course, as you know, as you noticed, whenever you start doing something, kids are here for you, staring, right? You're cleaning floor, they are trying to help you. You are hovering or vacuum cleaning the floor, right? And the kid is here. Can I do it? May I do it? So that's the time to teach them about vacuum cleaning in general, and about the parts and details of this process. And here we go. There's unlimited opportunities for you to do things. It enriches and deepens children's background knowledge and hence their lexicons. Follow interests of the child. For us parents, interest is an opportunity to introduce a new vocabulary and the concepts. Use semi-called teachable moments and opportunities. So once you notice the interest into something, bring the book up, talk about that object or subject or whatever notion, and extend this interest into the entire project if you know how to do that. If you notice your child is interested in something, birds, flowers, vehicles, pick a book on that topic. You know that I love to reconcile the context and content. So these are strategies for every single language in your house. So because I assume you're as a rule one language provider, so you probably will, or if you're a two languages provider, then try to do the same in every single language. That's the point. So non-verbal behaviors and gestures matter. So gestures make parental intentions aligned and narrow the search space. So when you point at the apple, there is no way how you can confuse the word apple with the ball, right? So you just start with pointing at least, then with the eyes, with the face, with the entire body. Just engage your everything non-verbal into communication with the kids, which is a majority of you doing this intuitively without any teaching. But for some people like me, it requires silent notification, implicit, no explicit explanations. So moreover, synchronizing gestures and words create a unitary experience for infants who perceive such stimuli as belonging together. So when you point at the apple and say apple, they start saying apple and know that this object is an apple. So it's like gestures and words, they are together. So what the question was, right? What if the child doesn't understand me? What shall I do? So when child understand what you're saying is called receptive language. There are some reasons for child having troubles understanding what you're saying in the one or two or least proficient language. First of all, always keep in the head. First thing to do is to check the ears, hearing. And I can tell you one sad story about our eyes experience, that when we had a kid, like our child, all of a sudden at the age of 4 lost, like not lost, one of the eyes rolled inwards, right? We couldn't get why. When we asked the doctor, she said, and we were abroad, right? We asked the doctor, she said that she from the birth had one eye was had less sight than another one. One of them has almost like 100% of sight, and another was just 20%, less than 20%. So that proportion was from the very beginning. And the issue is that just an average pediatrician did not recognize, no matter how deep they scanned her eyeballs and the purple, they all failed to recognize that one of the eyes almost blind. And when I asked this question, like, how comes that we checked with pediatrician every time eyes and nobody noticed that the eye is blind? She said, well, the eye doctor said that pediatrician is general health care provider, right? They are not trained specifically onto something, and they as normally give the reference to the specialist, neurospecialist. That type of inborn problem was not recognized because physically eyes are normal. They can see, they react to the light, everything is fine with them. But just because they don't have equipment and the knowledge to really test that type of things, so they missed it for many, many, many years in a row. And even now, when we go with the glasses, when she made a picture of the eye purple, she still said, everything is fine. So when child doesn't listen or doesn't understand what you say, the first thing to do is to go and check hearing. That's important, because a hearing and as sight, it's not like fixed number, right? It has a continuum. There is a perfect hearing and there is a deafness, right? In that continuum, your child's ears may be anywhere. I talked to a speech pathologist, right? And she said one of the interesting findings that many kids who have learning difficulties or pronunciation difficulties, this is very often connected to the problems with the hearing first. So before they start producing, they actually have to hear that properly. And if you notice that the kid kid doesn't react to what you say, ask your pediatrician to check ears separately with a specialist, and explain why you think so, right? Explain exactly what your concern. Why are you thinking that you have to be checked to everybody? Because, as I said, the continuum is quite long. So one of the ears may be more proficient, another one has less hearing. So and they can still hear and they can still react, but the quality of that sound may not be enough. So first thing, check if receptive language by some reason is not satisfying to you, check ears. So for all, again, second, why they may not understand what you say. Now, for all younger kids, face engagement, body language, gestures, and other visuals are very beneficial and great aid in the improvement of the comprehension. So don't rely solely on the words. Try to be a little bit more like engage the face, at least on gestures, and use the visuals. If you say something like "put your shoes on," right, and the kid displays no reaction but still looking at you, right? You take the shoe and say, "Shoe, put the shoe on," and model the action, or like repeat many times. Again, repeat, put shoe. You say, I'm telling you to put the shoe on, put the shoe on. You know how we put the shoes? You put the feet on the floor, you leave one foot, I put the shoe on you, then we're using the Velcro to close the shoe, so now you're good to go. So put the shoe on. Use this approach in that language that is falling behind. So demonstrate, model, engage your body language and the facial expressions and everything. Try to be a little bit more creative, aside from just giving verbal commands to do something. Sometimes receptive language may require extra stimulation. So extra stimulation is exactly this: additional visual aids and cues for your child to understand the language. So pointing, gesturing, body language, and pictures all works for them. Research support the benefits of the gesture for child word learning. So you point to the like, let's say you see that the kid is not looking at you. That's the problem of the focus. But if you see that the kid is looking but not doing anything about that, or like seemingly do not understand you, is the time to engage your creativity and nonverbal behavior. If it doesn't work, then consult with a specialist. Some cultures use gestures to the greater extent than others. Children from those cultures group, like for example Mexican children, may display more gesture use and high skills as a sequencing and imitating actions and following commands that incorporate gestures despite their lower expressive language. So some cultures are like traditionally more active with the gestures and face and emotions. Some cultures not, but the truth is that gestures really like comprehension is one thing, our expressive language is another thing, and then the receptive language is also the third thing. Three separate things. So as normal kids are well at receptive language and comprehension, but production of the language, expressive language, may fall behind severely. But it doesn't mean that the child is actually stupid. No, everything is good. He can hear, he understands what you say, but so far cannot say something. So gestures are a good way of helping them to meet their needs. And but I'm not talking about the like sign language, right? I'm talking about the doing things to help them to comprehend better with the help of the gestures, and gestures help to learn new words. So be aware of that, and I highly recommend to use your creativity while speaking. last strategy that keeps languages going for our kids. So it's a book sharing. Book reading promotes concepts of print knowledge, reading readiness, alphabet knowledge, oral language skills, and visual processing. So, um, reading, book sharing also supports oral language and emergent literacy. Emergent literacy skills are considered developmental precursors to literacy, including growth of receptive vocabulary and narrative skills, concepts and knowledge of articulation, phonology, awareness, print concepts, and awareness and early forms of the writings, such as scribbles and drawings. The same skills may emerge in the context of the rich language conversation between parents and the children, especially when those conversations occur around books. So let me explain. There was a question, very good question. So everybody knows why books are good, but nobody knows why actually they are good for languages. And as you like look around, everybody is obsessed with books, like especially young advanced parents. So book sharing, as you can see, is at the 10th place of my list, right? Because it's a least important things to do. It's here exactly at the end because it's not the cornerstone of the language development. If you go back, they are located. They are, all of those strategies are located exactly at the order of importance. First, engage child into immerse child into rich language. Second, reply to all kids' attempts to communicate and interact. Then do this, do that, and the book sharing comes at the end. It comes at the end on purpose. However, if you ask how do you learn language, the first question, the first reply you're gonna get from anybody, whether it's adult or child, the parents of the younger kids or adult learners, they're gonna say read more books. All right, so let's go into that. Reading and writing is an artificial type of language. It has been invented. We don't acquire reading, we have to teach it each other. So, however, listening and speaking is a first language, right? We are acquiring those skills. Reading and writing, we don't acquire. And technically speaking, these are even two different parts of the brain that's responsible for speaking and listening. And no, I mean, not for speaking and for reading, right? Kids with a language delay may be avid readers and good readers. Kids who cannot put grammatically correct sentence can read perfectly. So, and however, this is a priority of our society because we all now in the schooled society. It means that the schooling, right, education is a priority of every single country, and this is part of human rights. We all have to have an access to basic, at least, education. That's why reading skills are so important for our system, not for our kids. Technically speaking, the same set of skills that have been mentioned, like growth of receptive vocabulary, narrative skills, concepts and knowledge, articulation, phonology, awareness, these all can be developed like in the rich conversations between parent and children or child, right? About any topic. It's not about just book, about any topic. That's why I've been already explaining like for one entire hour what you can do. So reading is a cherry on the top of that cake, not the whole cake. So you can develop language without reading, and the good example is my fantastic husband. He never read a book to a kid before age of 3, and only because I forced it. Because for me, reading is like an essential part of the development. But for him, he developed her language way better than mine, without opening any book, just through the conversations. So also, reading is a priority of our state, and this is what they want every single school and every single preschool institution first concentrate on the literacy skills. Reading is a part of the literacy skills. The language, like interactive reading, mirrors the structural features of the classroom lessons. So when a teacher goes in front with the book and everybody listens, that's it. They are prepared for being in the school. The language parents direct to children during the book reading is more diverse than they use in many other situations, which may explain the benefits of book reading interactions for early language development. That's the only thing. So normally, the older books used to have publishers behind, right? There was an entire group of people who read the books and to watch the language that is printed in those books. So that language should be grammatically correct, and it should have diverse vocabulary, and it should be written good, and used to be professional writers. Right now, the situation changed. Anybody can be a publisher, anybody can be a writer, and you can see the new constellation of the writers who write the books. But unfortunately, from linguistic standpoint, I often cry when I see those books. I'm just like, oh shit, why did you publish this? I mean, if you at least made it all the way to the book, right? Published the book in the print and the color and everything, why you didn't check the spelling of your grammar or the word choice? Because sometimes new writers violate even the basic principles of the story building and story writing, especially if they use English. English is quite precise language. They precisely know how every paragraph should be developed, and that's why when the people from the street start writing books, the quality of the language in those books is severely bad. So that's why I personally prefer to stick only to the classical books tested by time and people, where it has rich vocabulary, and I know that they are censored in terms of what they write, and they're gonna only bring benefits. So talking more about the reading. So why reading is so popular in between any language learner? No, aside from every book contains, we familiarize our eyes with print and the words, and we meet new vocabulary, and we can see the new grammar constructions in those books, and we can see how they are used in the context, which is very important. So what in the United States National Early Literacy Panel in 2008 recommends to promote foundational literacy skills at the early childhood. That's why our books and been all rewired not long time ago from the birth to teach our kids alphabet, letters, and phonetics. Anything you open, it teaches only this. Then, like, through the literacy skills, they teach the concept, which I understand vice versa. You have to know the concept first, and then you only reach to the knowledge of the letters and sounds. Especially many kids are not ready for that yet. So what they're findings support the importance of alphabet knowledge, phonological awareness, rapid auto-naming of letters and digits, rapid auto-naming of the objects and colors, writing one's name and phonological memory as predictive skills for literacy development. Does it sound familiar? It's very familiar. Every workbook, textbook, whatever we find, like from 2000s, right? All has it. If you look at the books before, those literacy obsession was not there. Books were more literally rich, language-wise rich. The writers were, to my eye, better, and the context of that, like the stories, were more elaborated than now. Now everything, any textbook is only about the alphabet, matching the pictures with the letters, of that type of, which is important. I don't deny. Yes, reading is important for the schooling in general, because that's the only way how they traditionally extracted the information from the book. Now the times has changed, and we more watch videos rather than reading books. So I think we have to reconsider a little bit like our literacy attitude, and don't go so crazy, because in the United States, school starts at 5, in Europe at 7, and not only that, but now when you enroll your kid, no matter which age, 2 years old, they start learning alphabet, and at 3 years old they start learning alphabet. At 4 they keep on learning alphabet. At 5 they keep on learning alphabet, and finally, after 5 officially at school, they start reading. And many of them cannot even be proficient readers, or because they've been so abused all these childhood years with this alphabet that they they don't see. Plus, the value of book has already gone, because we are sitting on devices that provide us videos, right? You are watching this because this is easier rather than to read. Accept it. This is like, the time has changed. Important, yes. Could be very beneficial, yes. But unfortunately, we are, like, humanity is moving forward. We have to start reconsidering our obsession with the reading and literacy skills. So reading books so far has three major benefits. One of them is not mentioned. First, you share time with your kid, you share focus with your kid, you install emotional connection. Second, books may contain very useful vocabulary, and the usage of this vocabulary in the context. Very useful, original books like that. Third is it helps to develop literacy skills in our kids, which is very beneficial for our societies. Are books necessary or mandatory for language development? No. You can develop the same skills except for the print print awareness, probably through the rich conversation with the kid about anything. So engagement in literacy activities such as book reading promote all those emergent literacy skills. Emergent literacy skills relate to later measures of the cognitive development, positive attitudes toward literacy, you see, because it could be negative attitude, school readiness, and later reading achievements. So it's all about like profits that are for the society rather than for the individual. And finally, I want to say that, however, not all parents, especially immigrants or native-born monolingual or multilingual, are confident or comfortable reading to their children. Wordless picture books may be a way to engage parents into sharing books with the children without arousing anxiety about their own literacy skills. You see, interesting, right? So as I consider myself like barely proficient in English, and when I had a kid, I had to learn to read aloud together with the kid, and I was embarrassed with my pronunciation, with the intonation and everything, right? So what they offer here, just to familiarize yourself and child with the reading, use the wordless books and use the most proficient language to engage yourself and your child into book sharing. And and if you have a little bit language skills, so you can elaborate story from the books that have only pictures and use only pictures but not words, so which I find like very promising. So you see, answering the question like why reading is so important, even though nobody knows why, because first it has some benefits for the language development for sure, but majority obsession where it comes from is from the needs of the societies, school societies. So be mindful about that. This is the pinnacle of the language development, not the foundation. And these kids who play jumped out from. So effective strategies for promoting language in multilinguals are: first, relative and absolute amounts of exposure to each language. Parental responsiveness and appropriate verbal reply to the children, verbal initiatives. Child's interest to this object. Diversity of parental speech, grammatical complexity of utterances, co-construction of the narratives with the children in each language, positive tone, but positive tone not because we are doing some emotional damage, but because the positive and negative tones are using different type of language. And so positive tone use referential language, which is more diverse rather than negative, which is like giving it orders. Integrated and meaningful context. So when you pick the time when the interest of the child aligns with what he's doing and talk at that moment, which contradicts completely to the Montessori rule number 1: do not interfere child, otherwise his concentration is going to go away. I mean, I always, like, for myself, I'm asking, so if the concentration goes away, what, learning is not going to happen? The point about the younger kids, that no matter what they are doing, they are implicitly learning. They can hang like head down but keep on learning and things and concepts and knowledge and even things that happens around us that we don't even pay attention as adults. And they are the one who is like a sponge, right? Absorb everything. Even if your child's concentration is distracted, it doesn't mean that the child is not gonna learn anything. So that luxury of like concentration on the activity is the only for monolingual kids, because Montessori was not multilingual, so she never meant anything about the languages properly, right? She was not language specialist, and I don't know what now people try to tailor her studies to reality of diversity and multilingualism. But unfortunately, she was, if I'm not mistaken, she was monolingual. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, right? So she said concentration should not be distracted. I mean, for multilingual kids, attention on the object. Her words contradict to the research findings, right? Attention on the object and us talking about object is precisely that teachable moment when the learning happens. So that's why, if you practice Montessori, keep in mind that research says the opposite what she says. And I actually I prone to believe research more rather than some studies from the almost like from 70 years ago. Like, it's according to academia parameters, this is outdated information. So integrated and meaningful context. So use language in the context together while your child is hands-on activity. Non-verbal behavior gestures are important. Book sharing is important. to sound without obsession, of course, and of course, play with language is important. So, but play is not from the study. This is a different type of video. So thank you for being around for so long. I really appreciate that. I hope you found something very useful for you here. If not, I accept all type of comments, please. Welcome.